Then one, snowball. Sampling is a method of choosing a sample using strata, networks, commonality, groups, none of them. So snowball uses networks. So it's a kind of investigative approach where you get to um, find information from a small subgroup to a bigger network. For instance, a thief who knows a clique of thieves, it gets to grow into another network. So B is the answer. Your colleague is confused about using the marketing research process as he knows that something is wrong, but is not sure of the specific causes to investigate. He seems to be having problems with the dash, which is often the hardest step to take. So, defining the problem and research objective. What's the answer? Because we're looking at what? Every research process should start with the problem and objectives for you to have specific causes. Question number 3. Which one of the following is true regarding research objectives? Research objectives, when determined, will ensure viability of the marketing research department, are seldom achieved but often stated as goals. Research objectives are achieved, provide information necessary to solve a problem. Research objectives are achieved to provide sufficient earnings to obtain a reasonable return on investment. So we clicked on C, to provide information necessary to solve a problem. So research objectives, the title, and the statement of the problem are interconnected. So the term external validity means the question whether the results of the study can be generated beyond the specific research context, whether or not scientific findings are applicable to people's everyday natural settings. None of them, whether the problem is judged to be good research question by those outside the study. An ambiguous concept whose meaning depends on how it is defined. So answer is B. External validity is a question of whether the results of a study can be generated beyond a specific research context. Okay. Generalized conclusion on the basis of a sample is technically known as a generalized conclusion on the basis of a sample is what we call statistical inference. So it's what we call parameter inference and statistical inference. I'll explain more of this during the week, but just quickly to run through this. A generalized conclusion is what is called statistical inference. Which one of the following is not a type of non-probability sampling? So we have two types of probability sampling, sampling, non-probability and probability. Probability has to do with numbers, and non-probability doesn't do with numbers. So non-probability, we have convenience, snowball, quarter sampling, purposive sampling. They don't have to do with numbers. Whereas probability is one which does with numbers like simple random, or these are probability systematic. So which one is not a non-probability sampling method? We got to certify it because this one is a probability sampling method. So we also go to the next question. Distribution that is formed by all possible values of statistics is known as a sampling distribution. A sampling distribution. So sampling distribution is formed by all possible statistics. Okay. Are we together? So which one of the following sampling methods is appropriate to the study of the prevalence of HIV/AIDS amongst male and females in Zambia between 1976, 86, 96, and 2006? So, which one of the following is an appropriate method that we can use? Is it quota sampling? Is it cluster sampling? Is it systematic? Is it stratified, or none of them? So cluster sampling has to do with populations within regions, northern province, southern province, and you do a simple random, so that one goes out. Systematic sampling is one where you're going to pick every nth term. For instance, the 10th term, the 100th term, so this one is out. Stratified sampling looks at information you collect within a certain bracket. Top management, middle management, okay, or this particular year, you're getting the statistics of those that had AIDS. This particular year, like each of them are called strata. So stratified sampling will be appropriate. Okay. Are we together? Any questions at this point? Okay. What is a
We
research,
are together.
what is a research design? And a research design is a framework for every stage of data collection and analysis. A way of conducting research that is not grounded in theory, a style in which you present your findings, e.g., graphs, a choice between using qualitative and quantitative methods. So a research design is simply a framework that gives you a step-by-step stage that you're going to use to collect your data and analyze them. That is what we call our research design. Okay, then we go to validity. A study that has high internal validity. A, allows for generalization of other populations. C, is free from confounding variables and biases. Shows consistent results over time. And accurately measures the construct of interest. Okay, who wants to try this question? High internal validity measures what? We had discussed this the other time. Internal validity.
Internal validity
Uh-huh.
measures, let me try. It measures the accuracy in which the method or the procedure used measures, or the tool used measures the intended outcome. Okay.
Okay, we
So I
had
think this one is free from.
okay. We had looked at the examples last time. Remember the examples we had discussed? So I really need you to be remembering what we had discussed last time, so that Makes sense. Okay. Okay, see. If we have a sample to the population, then it's partitioned into units. Those are known to be what? Sampling frame, sampling error, sampling gap, sampling units, and none of the above. If we have an entire population that is partitioned into units, these units are known to be sampling frame, sampling error, sampling gap, sampling units, or none of the above. So these are sampling units. Okay, I sent you some notes, so you should be reading my notes. Also, in every session, I try to summarize these notes that you cannot find from your textbooks, but they're easy for you to follow. Okay. Which of the following is not a form of measurement validity? Which one is not a form of measurement validity? Concurrent validity, face validity, construct validity, content validity, none of the above. So all of them qualify to be part of measurement validity, and we discussed each of them. So answer is E, none of the above. For correlation, which correlation best explains the relationship between creativity and intelligence? So correlation basically looks at how two variables are closely related. They're higher, or they're closer to one, the more um, related they are. The further from one they are, the less related they are. So here you pick the highest value because these two are closely related. Creativity moves alongside intelligence. So the figures in themselves, um, not an issue, but you are looking at the best, which is the highest. So that is A, 0.891. Quantitative research has been criticized because it understates the similarities between the objects in the natural and social worlds. The measurement process suggests a spurious and artificial sense of accuracy. Reliance on instruments and procedures makes it high in the ecological validity. Driving instructors always make you practice the most difficult maneuver. So here, measurement process suggests a spurious and artificial sense of accuracy because it deals with what? Numbers in the figurative term. So B. Experimental study is based on survey of literature, replication of research, conceptual parameters, and manipulation of variables. So mainly, when you're dealing with experiments, we are manipulating variables. So as E. The difference between expected value of a statistic and value of a parameter is being estimated is called a what? The difference between what you're expecting, which is expected value of a statistic, and the actual value of the parameter is called A, bias, B, non-sampling error, C, standard error, E, sampling error, or none of the above. So the difference between the expected statistic and the value of the parameter being estimated. What is it? Is it bias or sampling error?
So Collins, this one also confused me. So if we're just looking at the difference between what the statistic is and the parameter, is that the sampling error? But this one, because it's talking about the values, then should it be bias?
Yes, I want us to discuss. you have a solution in your question, but you're not explaining it with confidence.
Because
There's
I'm
a very thin line
confused.
that will differentiate this question. Because others will go for sampling error, others will go for bias.
I'm looking at the term expected value, the word value.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure.
So sampling error and bias are different. So the difference between the actual statistic, for instance, if the what example can I give? Okay, sampling error looks at the process. Okay, whereas bias is the difference between the two parameters, the value that you expect and the actual parameter being estimated. Please switch off your video.
Mr. Collins,
Mhm.
on this one, I seriously, Mr. Collins,
Yes, yes.
on question 16,
Mm-hmm.
I seriously couldn't grasp because I thought the difference between the value, the statistical value which is achieved and the parameter that we estimated, I thought it was a sampling error. I seriously thought it was a sampling error, not a bias.
Let's
Maybe you need to
explain. Let's
explain to me
brainstorm.
the difference between the two.
Hmm?
Sorry?
Let's discuss. What do the others feel?
Maybe I need help in understanding the difference between the bias and the sampling error. Because I seriously thought it was sampling error.
Okay, so when you're talking about a parameter, the parameter is actually a known value that describes a population. It's a true mean. The expected value is the average of the sample statistic, like the sample mean or population mean. So when we use sample statistic to estimate a population parameter, we want to estimate what we call an estimator, whether it's biased or an estimate. I think we did that in QM, whether it's unbiased, right? So the properties of parameters that we have, it must be unbiased. Okay, the expected value of the estimator must be so and so. So the difference, if the difference is not zero, then we usually call that estimator. If the difference is not zero, then that estimator is what? Is biased. So the estimator must not have any difference in short. So we are actually trying to explain the aspect of biasness. So bias is actually a term which we use to describe the difference between two things, the expected value of the estimator and the parameter. That issue is what we call bias, number one. Number two, sampling error is actually the difference between the value of the sample statistic and the actual population parameter in a given sample, which may be caused by chance variation. So um, it's a thin line of understanding that you need to get. All right. So sampling error is what the difference between the value of the sample statistic and the actual population parameter. Whereas here we're discussing the degree of biasness. Okay. So how do we define um, bias then? What is bias in simple terms? So when you're talking about bias in statistics, It's a systematic error that occurs when the estimator is either overstated or understated. Okay? Bias in statistics, we're talking about um, a systematic error that occurs when the estimator consistently estimates or underestimates the true value of the population parameter. Okay. So in this case, there's a formula for bias, okay, that we have. So I don't know whether I'm trying to simplify this or confuse you. So in simple terms, bias is simply the difference between what you expect to get and what is actually true. That is bias. What you're expecting to get, which is your average estimate, and what you actually get. That is bias. Another instance you can want to look at it, for instance, you want to guess the average height of students in a school, but the way you're picking the students, which gives you a wrong answer. Maybe you're picking two students, okay, or you guess that, or your guess will always be off. That mistake is what we call bias. So bias mainly looks at the method of guessing um, that is a little too high or too low, if you're going to repeat many times. So the difference between the expected value of a statistic and the value of the parameter being estimated. So we're looking at estimation here. So estimation is what we measures biasness. So these are some of the properties. So there's a thin line. Increasing the sample size has the following effect on the sampling error. Number one, it reduces the sampling error. Number two, has no effect. Number three, none of the above. Number four, it increases sampling error. Number five, all of the above. So in statistics, remember we learned that the larger the sample, the more accurate it is. So in this case, if you're increasing sample size, you're increasing its accuracy, and thereby you're reducing the what? The sampling error. Number 18, what is a dependent variable in a research? We talked about independent and dependent variable. So a dependent variable is a variable not affected by other variables, a variable that is controlled by research participants, a variable that is manipulated by the researcher, a variable that is measured or observed in response to the independent variable. So which one is the outcome and which one is the input? Mhm.
Sorry, what was the question?
Which one is the output and which one is the input?
Input
What is the dependent variable? In
variable
this case, the answer is
independent
E.
and then
Explain, is it correct?
Yes, it is correct. It's E.
Okay, it is E, that's correct. Okay, we're just from explaining. So a dependent variable is the outcome you're trying to measure. So it depends on something else, usually what the researcher is trying to change or test, which is the independent variable. Okay. Then question number 19, among among these sampling, which which sampling is based on equal probability, simple random, systematic, probability, and stratified. Which one is based on equal probability? It's simple random sampling. Systematic, you're picking every nth term. Okay, stratified, you're picking in strata. All right. So are we together? So simple random usually on equal or chance. Then the difference between the measures and indicators is that what is the difference between measures and indicators? So A, measures are intuitively devised, then applied as they are direct indicators of a concept. B, indicators are a more direct relationship in um, underlying concept than measures. Uh, C, indicators are unambiguous quantities, whereas measures are subjective. Then D, measures are unambiguous quantities, whereas indicators are device, and none of the above. So um, a measure, by definition, is something we create based on our understanding, like a test score, survey. An indicator, on the other hand, is something that is more concrete. It's direct. It points to a concept. So the difference is that we create measures to represent complex ideas. Okay, so on this one, um, verifying between A and B, I felt A was something, but most of the solutions are pointing to B. So indicators have a more direct relationship to an underlying concept than measures. Okay. Anyway, one of the two, but my feeling was on A mostly, but B from the other sources was showing, you don't get everything, at least get one or two wrong. Okay. Part 21, question number 21. One of the preoccupations of quantitative researchers is generalization, which is a sign of external reliability, internal validity, external validity, internal reliability. Okay, which one is the answer? Do you remember our lesson on reliability and validity?
Yes, it's external validity.
It's external validity. Okay. You want to explain a bit? So generalization, we said, means applying results from your study to a larger group. And when you're talking about external validity, we're looking at how well your results can be applied to the outside setting of your research. In other words, how generalizable, how you can generalize them, generalizable they are. So since quantitative researchers, in most cases, often aim to apply their findings broadly, they usually focus on external validity. So yeah, she's right, D. A survey was done among friends, classmates, neighbors to know their preference to a particular brand of cold drink. This is an example of judgment sampling, convenience, cluster, stratified. Okay, so a survey was conducted among friends, classmates, neighbors to know the preference of a particular brand. So this is convenience sampling because we know that convenience, as a term denotes, means choosing people who are easy to reach or available, like our friends, classmates, neighbors, as has been mentioned. So it's not random, it's not representative at all. It's quick, easy. So convenience sampling was appropriate. Are we together? Okay.
Yes, we are.
A study is relatable. This means that A or B, it was conducted by a reputable researcher who can be trusted. The methods are outlined in the methods of discussions clearly For research to be replicated, the measures devised for the concept are stable on different outcomes. The findings can be generalized in other social phenomena. Okay. So the answer is D. So if we talk about reliable, a study being reliable, it means that the measures that were devised for the concepts are stable on different occasions. So we said that reliability means you are consistent. Okay, you get consistent results when you repeat the study over and over. So if the same method gives you the same results over time, it is reliable. It's like you're using a scale. Like I said, you weigh yourself 3 times and it gives you the same number. We say it's what? Reliable. So here, D is correct because it shows that they don't change. All right. Out of the given options, which will need the biggest sample size? Simple random, cluster, proportional, systematic. So the answer is simple random. Simple random usually treats everyone in the population equally without what? Grouping them. So to make sure simple random captures all subgroups fairly without any inbuilt structure, it must require a large sample size. In contrast with the stratified sampling, cluster sampling, these ones just help us reduce the required size by uh, ensuring that the coverage of the key groups are measured in clusters. So instead of you going to Northern Province, you're just going to pick 2 from each. Okay, so here the correct answer is A, because simple random mainly needs the biggest sample size to be accurate and representative. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
So we go to question number 25. Which one of the following refers to the extent to which the study accurately measures or reflects the concept it intends to measure? Generalization, replicability, validity, reliability. So which one refers to the extent to which a study accurately measures or reflects the concept it intends to measure? So we'll look at validity. Validity, we said, is what? A means that the research tool is measuring what it's supposed to measure. So when you create a questionnaire, if we want to measure happiness and actually measures happiness, not stress, then we are saying that it has high validity. So validity is the answer. The other options are not correct, like generalizability. This one, whether the results apply to other groups, it's not about measurement accurate. Replicability, whether you get the same results of the study. Reliability looks at whether the results are consistent, not necessarily accurate. So the answer is what? It's D. Okay, so which question were we not very clear from these ones? My idea is you get which question did you need clarity before we end? Is you know what you're answering. You can change 1 or 2 that you feel you're not agreeing with me, but if you um feel everything is okay, we can end here.
Okay. For me, Mr. Collins, I think when you start the revisions,
Mm-hmm.
I think there should be unit 7,
Mm-hmm.
unit 6 and 7. I think that's where I'll need more help because there's some terms which were confusing me. They were sounding to be like similar but different. So that's why I really need your help.
Okay, I'll do likewise. Okay, so question number 6, which one of the following is not a type of non-probability sampling? If this one was straightforward, I explained why stratified is not non-probability.
Yes.
Question number 7, the distribution formed by all possible values in statistics is known as a sampling distribution. Maybe to just explain the other parameters. Is my network still clear? So a sampling distribution, by definition, is a distribution you get when you take all the random samples from a population, then you calculate their statistic, like the mean, from each sample. Then you can plot all these values together. So this concept is what we use in what? Inferential statistics. Okay? So option A is 100% correct, no doubt. Sampling distribution. Okay. Maybe question 8 again. Those of you who didn't understand what is happening there, which one of the following sampling method is appropriate in the study of the prevalence of AIDS amongst male and females in Zambia in 1975, 1986, 1996, and 2006? Is it quarter sampling, cluster, systematic, stratified? So the answer here was stratified, because stratified is used when you divide population into specific subgroups. In this case, we are using what? Um, Gender, which is male and female. And the years 1976, 86, 96, 2006. So from each subgroup here, the participants are randomly selected. We make sure that each group is represented here. Quota sampling is not correct because it is a non-probability sampling method. It's not random. Cluster sampling, the entire groups, not individuals, are taken from the stratum. Systematic, we select every nth individual without grouping them. None of them is incorrect because of what I've mentioned. So stratified sampling is the best because you want to compare categories, males versus females, and also across time periods that we have talked about. All right. I don't know if there's anything I've not explained well. Okay. Like I said, we need this more for your exams. So you need to understand these concepts. So research you get to learn over and over. And I can ask where you need to. Maybe lastly, 9 and 10, I can just re-explain. A study design. Okay. A study design is a framework for every stage of collection and data analysis. So a research design, like I said, is a blueprint for your study. It will tell you where you're going to do the study, how you're going to collect the study, how you will analyze them. That is what is involved in chapter 3. So option A is correct because it shows the coverage from data collection to analysis. Question number 10, study with high.
Mr. Collins,
Yeah.
sorry, before you move to question 10, what
Mhm.
is the difference between a research design and a research approach?
The two approaches, quantitative and qualitative. So a research design is a blueprint. It's a foundation. It's a framework that gives you how you're going to move. Okay. So research design and research approach are different in many sense. Okay. Um, because when you're looking at the approach, I've given you the two approaches that are there to start with, like spoiler, so that you don't mix them. So when you're looking at the design, you're looking at the overall blueprint, how the study will be conducted, how the data will be measured. And the main purpose here is to give evidence that will enable you to answer your research questions properly. The types of research designs we have descriptive, experimental, correlation, case study, cross-sectional. they just focus on how you conduct the research, whereas the approach is the approach that you're going to use, either philosophical, theoretical, behind your research. It will define the direction or the mindset that you will be undertaking. Okay, so when you're dealing with approaches, we have quantitative and qualitative approach or mixed approach. So qualitative looks at what? The explorative phenomenon. You're having an in-depth, you're using a non-numerical approach. That's qualitative. Quantitative, you're focusing on numbers. Mixed, you're combining both. So what type of data will be collected, how that type of data will be interpreted, all this is about what? The approach. So I've defined them in difference in terms of definition. One is a blueprint, one is a direction, the focus. For design, it looks at the methods and procedures and timelines. The approach looks at the types of data and how you interpret it. The questions also differ. Okay. For research design, it looks at how I will conduct my study. Here, the approach looks at what kind of data I will analyze. Examples of research designs, we said case study, experiment, surveys. Examples of approaches is qualitative, quantitative, mixed. Okay, so in short, an approach is a broad strategy, whereas a design is a specific plan on how you want to implement your study. So these are the differences. Thank you for your good questions. You have a good day and a good night, and before we sleep.